Hello friends, welcome to GK Rapid Brain YouTube channel. Today in this video, I have brought SOSE Science General Question and Answer on the world of living for School of Specialized Exhalation STEM, which will be asked in all exam. This video is second part. Let's start. First question, in which form CO2 is carried in the blood? Options: A. Potassium carbonate, B. Sodium carbonate, C. Magnesium carbonate, D. None of the above. The right answer is D. None of the above. Carbon dioxide CO2 is carried in the blood in three forms. Dissolved in the plasma, about 5 to 10% of the CO2 in the blood is dissolved in the plasma. Bicarbonate ions, about 80 to 85% of the CO2 in the blood is carried as bicarbonate ions. Bicarbonate ions are formed when CO2 reacts with water in the blood. Hemoglobin, about 5 to 10% of the CO2 in the blood is carried by hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the protein in red blood cell that carries oxygen. CO2 binds to hemoglobin and forms carbaminohemoglobin. Second question, in anaerobic respiration, the pyruvic acid in muscle will form A. Acetaldehyde, B. Lactic acid, C. Lactic acid, D. Alcohol. The right answer is B. Lactic acid. In anaerobic respiration, pyruvic acid in muscles form lactic acid. Anaerobic respiration is a type of respiration that does not require oxygen. It is used by some organisms such as yeast and by muscle cells when they are working hard and not getting enough oxygen. In anaerobic respiration, pyruvic acid is converted into lactic acid. Lactic acid is a waste product that can build up in the muscles and cause them to ache. Third question, oxygen dissociation curve of hemoglobin. Options: A. Linear, B. Sigmoid, C. Hyperblue, D. None of these. The right answer is B. Sigmoid. The oxygen dissociation curve of hemoglobin is sigmoidal. The sigmoidal shape of the oxygen dissociation curve of hemoglobin is due to the cooperative binding of oxygen to hemoglobin. This means that the binding of one oxygen molecule to hemoglobin makes it easier for other oxygen molecules to bind. The sigmoidal shape of the oxygen dissociation curve of hemoglobin is important because it allows hemoglobin to release oxygen to the tissues even when the oxygen concentration in the blood is low. The other option is you mentioned linear, hyperblue, and none of these are not correct. A linear curve would mean that the amount of oxygen bound to hemoglobin is directly proportional to the partial pressure of oxygen. This is not the case as the oxygen dissociation curve is sigmoidal. A hyperblue curve would mean that the amount of oxygen bound to hemoglobin is increasing at a faster rate than the partial pressure of oxygen. This is also not the case as the oxygen dissociation curve is sigmoidal. Fourth question, which one of the following animal has no hole but respires? Options: A. Fish, B. Cockroach, C. Earthworm, D. Colintrate. The right answer is D. Colintrate. Colintrates are animals that do not have lungs or gills, but they still respire. They respire through their skin. The skin of a colintrate is thin and moist, which allows oxygen to diffuse into the body. Carbon dioxide diffuses out of the body through the skin. The other animals you mentioned, fish, cockroach, and earthworm, all have lungs or gills. They use these organs to breathe air or water. So the only animal that does not have lungs or gills but still respires is the colintrate. Fifth question, respiratory mechanism is controlled by options: A. Autonomic nervous system, B. Sympathetic nervous system, C. Central nervous system, D. None of the above. The right answer is A. Autonomic nervous system. The respiratory mechanism is controlled by the autonomic nervous system (ANS). The ANS is a part of the nervous system that controls involuntary actions such as breathing. The ANS is divided into two branches, the sympathetic nervous system SNS and the parasympathetic nervous system PNS. The SNS is responsible for stimulating the body fight or flight response. This response including increasing heart rate, blood pressure and breathing rate. The PNS is responsible for calming the body down. This response includes slowing down heart rate, blood pressure and breathing rate. The respiratory mechanism is controlled by the ANS through a network of nerves that connect the brain to the lungs. These nerves send signals to the lungs that control the rate and depth of breathing. Sixth question. The amount of air normally inspired and expired is called options A. Residual volume, B. Tidal volume, C. Complemental air, D. None of the above. The right answer is B. Tidal volume. The amount of air normally inspired and expired is called tidal volume. The other options are residual volume, the volume of air that remains in the lungs after a maximum expiration. Complemental air, the volume of air that can be inspired in addition to the tidal volume. Inspiratory reserve volume, the volume of air that can be inspired after a normal tidal inspiration. Seventh question. Exchange of gases occurs in options A. Alveoli, B. Bronchi, C. Trachea, D. Bronchioles. The right answer is A. Alveoli. The exchange of gases occurs in the alveoli. Alveoli are small sac-like structures in the lungs that are surrounded by a network of capillaries. The walls of the alveoli are very thin, which allows oxygen to diffuse from the air into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide to diffuse from the bloodstream into the air. The other options mentioned, bronchi, trachea, and bronchioles, are all part of the respiratory system, but they do not participate in the exchange of gases. Bronchi are the large airways that carry air to the lungs. Trachea is the main airway that carries air from the throat. Bronchioles are small airways that branch off from the bronchi and lead to the alveoli. 8th question. Ratio of oxyhemoglobin and hemoglobin in the blood is based on options A. CO2 tension, B. Carbonate tension, C. O2 tension, D. None of these. The right answer is C. O2 tension. The ratio of oxyhemoglobin and reduced hemoglobin in the blood is based on oxygen tension. Oxygen tension is the partial pressure of oxygen in the blood. The higher the oxygen tension, the more oxyhemoglobin will be present in the blood. The lower the oxygen tension, the more reduced hemoglobin will be present in the blood. Carbon dioxide tension and carbonate tension do not affect the ratio of oxyhemoglobin and reduce hemoglobin in the blood. 9th question. The sum of inspiratory and expiratory capacity is known as options A. Respiratory capacity, B. Vital capacity, C. Lung capacity, D. All the above. The right answer is B. Vital capacity. The sum of inspiratory and expiratory capacity is known as vital capacity. Respiratory capacity is the total volume of air that can be moved in and out of the lungs during a single breathing cycle. It is made up of the tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume. Lung capacity is that volume of air that can be held in the lungs. It is made up of the vital capacity, residual volume and functional residual capacity. 10th question. Defibrinated blood in options A. Blood proteins, B. Blood plasma, C. Serum, D. All the above. The right answer is B. Blood plasma. Defibrinated blood is blood plasma. Blood plasma is the liquid part of blood that contains blood proteins, nutrients and waste products. It is made up of about 55% water, 20% proteins, 7% salts and 18% other substances. Defibrinated blood is blood that has had the fibrin removed? Fibrin is a protein that forms clots. When fibrin is removed, the blood remains liquid. The other options mentioned, blood proteins and serum, are not correct. Blood proteins are the proteins that are found in blood. They are responsible transporting nutrients, hormones and other substances throughout the body. Serum is the fluid that remains after blood has clotted. It contains blood proteins, nutrients and waste products. However, serum does not contain fibrinogen, which is the protein that forms fibrin. 11th question. Smallest RBC are found in options: A. Musk deer, B. Frog, C. Rat, D. None of these. The right answer is A. Musk deer. The smallest RBCs are found in musk deer. The size of RBCs varies from animal to animal. The smallest RBCs are found in musk deer, which are small mammals that live in Asia. The RBC of musk deer are about 2.5 micrometers in diameter, which is about half the size of human RBCs. The other options you mentioned, frog and rat, have larger RBCs. The RBCs of frogs are about 7 micrometers in diameter and the RBCs of rats are about 7.5 micrometers in diameter. 12th question. In the ion that is necessary for coagulation of blood is options: A. Sodium ion, B. Calcium ion, C. Iron ion, D. Potassium ion. The right answer is B. Calcium ion. The ion that is necessary for coagulation of blood is calcium ion. Calcium ions are needed for the formation of fibrin, which is protein that forms clots. When blood clots, calcium ions help to bind the fibrin together. The other ions you mentioned, sodium, iron and potassium, are not necessary for coagulation of blood. Sodium ions are involved in the regulation of blood pressure, but they are not involved in the formation of clots. Iron ions are a component of hemoglobin, which is the protein that carries oxygen in the blood. However, they are not involved in the formation of clots. Potassium ions are involved in the transmission of nerve impulses, but they are not involved in the formation of clots. 13th question. Source fibrinogen is options: A. Blood, B. Lymph, C. Liver, D. Spleen. The right answer is C. Liver. The source of fibrinogen is the liver. Fibrinogen is a protein that is produced by the liver. It is a precursor of fibrin, which is a protein that forms clots. When blood clots, fibrinogen is converted into fibrin. The other options mentioned, blood, lymph and spleen, are not the sources of fibrinogen. Blood contains fibrinogen, but it is not the source of fibrinogen. Fibrinogen is produced by the liver and then released into the bloodstream. Lymph does not fibrinogen. Lymph is a clear fluid that is found in the lymphatic system. It does not contain any blood cells or proteins. The spleen does not contain fibrinogen. The spleen is an organ that is located in the abdomen. It is responsible for filtering blood and removing old red blood cells. It does not produce fibrinogen. 14th question. Antibodies are synthesized in options: A. Blood, B. Liver, C. Heart, D. Lymph glands. The right answer is D. Lymph glands. And antibodies are synthesized in lymph glands. Lymph glands are small bean-shaped organs that are found throughout the body. They are part of the lymphatic system, which is a network of vessels that helps to remove waste products from the body and fight infection. Lymph glands produce lymphocytes, which are white blood cells that fight infections. Lymphocytes produce antibodies, which are proteins that help the body to fight specific antigens. The other option mentioned, blood, liver and heart, do not synthesize antibodies. Blood contains antibodies, but it does not synthesize them. Antibodies are produced by lymphocytes and then released into the bloodstream. The liver does not synthesize antibodies. The liver is an organ that is located in the abdomen. It is responsible for a variety of functions, including the production of bile and the metabolism of nutrients. It does not produce antibodies. The heart does not synthesize antibodies. The heart is an organ that is located in the chest. It is responsible for pumping blood throughout the body. It does not produce antibodies. 15th question. Antibodies are produced by options A. RBC, B. basophils, C. lymphocytes, E. eosinophils. The right answer is C. lymphocytes. Antibodies are produced by lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are a type of white blood cells that is responsible for the blood immune response. They are produced in the bone marrow and then mature in the lymph nodes. Lymphocytes produce antibodies in the response to antigens. An antigen is a substance that the body recognizes as foreign. When an antigen enters the body, it binds to a lymphocyte. The lymphocyte then produces antibodies that specifically bind to that antigen. The antibodies produced by lymphocytes bind to antigen and help the body to fight infection. They do this by tagging the antigen for destruction by other white blood cells. The other options you mentioned, RBCs, basophils and eosinophils, do not produce antibodies. RBCs are red blood cells. They are responsible carrying oxygen throughout the body. They do not produce antibodies. Basophils are a type of white blood cells. They are responsible for releasing histamine, which is a substance that causes inflammation. They do not produce antibodies. Eosinophils are a type of white blood cells. They are responsible for fighting parasites. They do not produce antibodies. 16th question. The instrument used to measure the blood pressure is options A. thermometer, B. stethoscope, C. potometer, D. sphygmomanometer. The right answer is D. sphygmomanometer. A sphygmomanometer is an instrument used to measure blood pressure. It consists of an inflatable cuff that is wrapped around the upper arm, a pressure gauge and a stethoscope. The cuff is inflated to stop the flow of blood in the artery and then slowly deflated while listening to the blood flow with the stethoscope. The first sound heard is the systolic pressure and the last sound is the diastolic pressure. A thermometer is used to measure body temperature. A stethoscope is used to listen to the sound of the throat and lungs. A potometer is used to measure the rate of water flow. 17th question. The largest lymphatic organ in the body is options A. liver, B. pancreas, C. spleen, D. lymph node. The right answer is C. spleen. The spleen is the largest lymphatic organ in the body. It is located in the upper left abdomen behind the stomach. The spleen is responsible for filtering blood, removing old red blood cells and platelets, and producing lymphocytes, which are a type of white blood cell that help fight infection. The liver is the largest organ in the body, but it is not a lymphatic organ. The pancreas is a gland that produces digestive enzymes and hormones, but it is also not a lymphatic organ. Lymph nodes are small, bean-shaped organs that are found throughout the body. They are responsible for filtering lymph, which is a clear fluid that carries white blood cells. 18th question. William Harvey is known for the discovery of options A. blood circulation, B. blood groups, C. blood clotting, D. none of these. The right answer is A. blood circulation. William Harvey is known for the discovery of blood circulation. Blood groups were discovered by Karl Landsteiner in 1900. Blood clotting was discovered by Rudolf Virchow in 1856. Harvey was an English physician who lived from 1578 to 1657. He is considered the father of modern physiology. In his book De Motu Cordis on the motion of the heart, published in 1628, he described the circulation of blood through the heart and lungs. This was a major breakthrough in medical science and it revolutionized our understanding of the human body. Harvey's discovery was not universally accepted at first, however, it was eventually confirmed by other scientists and it is now considered one of the most important discoveries in the history of medicine. 19 question. The blood leaving the lungs is richer in options: A. Carbon dioxide, B. Water, C. Oxygen, D. Nitrogen. The right answer is C. Oxygen. The blood leaving the lungs is richer in oxygen. The lungs are responsible for exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood. When we breathe in oxygen from the air enters the lungs and diffuses into the bloodstream. The oxygenated blood then travels to the tissues where it releases oxygen to the cells. The cells use the oxygen to produce energy. The blood that leaves the lungs is richer in oxygen because it has just picked up oxygen from the air. The blood that enters the lungs is richer in carbon dioxide because it has just given up carbon dioxide to the air. The other option mentioned, carbon dioxide, water and nitrogen, are not as abundant in the blood that leaves the lungs. Carbon dioxide is more abundant in the blood that enters the lungs than in the blood that leaves the lungs. Water is evenly distributed throughout the bloodstream. Nitrogen is the most abundant gas in the atmosphere, but it is not as abundant in the blood. 20 question. The renal portal system is found in options: A. Man, B. Whale, C. Rabbit, D. Frog. The right answer is D. Frog. The renal portal system is found in frogs. The renal portal system is a network of veins that connects the kidney to the liver. The system allows blood from the kidney to be filtered by the liver before it returns to the heart. The renal portal system is not found in humans, whales or rabbits. 21 question. ANF, atrial natriuretic factor, is options: A. hormone of the heart, B. an antibody, C. an enzyme, D. none of the above. The right answer is A. hormone of the heart. ANF, atrial natriuretic factor, is a hormone of the heart. ANF is produced by the heart and released into the bloodstream. It has several functions including dilating blood vessels. ANF dilates blood vessels, which lowers blood pressure. Increasing urine output. ANF increases urine output, which helps to remove excess fluid from the body. Inhibiting renin secretion. ANF inhibits the secretion of renin, which is an enzyme that helps to regulate blood pressure. ANF is peptide hormone, which means that is made up of amino acids. It is a very important hormone for maintaining blood pressure and fluid balance. The other options mentioned, antibody and enzyme, are not correct. An antibody is a protein that helps the body fight infection. An enzyme is a protein that helps to speed up chemical reaction. 22 question. Heart is completely enclosed by a membrane known as options: A. tympanic, B. ventricular septum, C. pericardium, D. none of these. The right answer is C. pericardium. The heart is completely enclosed by a membrane known as the pericardium. The pericardium is a double-walled sac that surrounds the heart. It is made up of two layers, the fibrous pericardium and the serous pericardium. The fibrous pericardium is the outer layer and it is made up of tough fibrous tissues. The serous pericardium is the inner layer and it is made up of a thin layer of cells that secrete a fluid that lubricates the heart. The pericardium helps to protect the heart and to keep it in place. It also helps to prevent the heart from overfilling with blood. The other options, tympanic and ventricular septum, are not correct. The tympanic membrane is the eardrum. The ventricular septum is the wall that separates the left and right ventricles of the heart. 23rd question. The difference between systolic and systolic pressure is called options A. Blood pressure, B. Pulse pressure, C. Systolic pressure, D. None of these. The right answer is B. Pulse pressure. The difference between systolic and diastolic pressure is called pulse pressure. Blood pressure is measured into two numbers, systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure is the pressure in the arteries when the heart beats. Diastolic pressure is the pressure in the arteries when the heart is at rest. Pulse pressure is the difference between systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. It is a measure of the force of the heart pumping action. A normal pulse pressure is about 30 to 40 millimeter of mercury. A high pulse pressure can be a sign of heart disease or other health problems. It is important to have your blood pressure checked regularly to monitor your health. The other options are blood pressure. This is the overall pressure of the blood in the arteries. Systolic pressure. This is the pressure in the arteries when the heart beats. Diastolic pressure. This is the pressure in the arteries when the heart is at rest. 24 question. Blood pressure is measured usually from the options A. Branchial vein, B. Branchial artery, C. Coronary artery, D. None of these. The right answer is B. Branchial artery. Blood pressure is measured usually from the brachial artery. The brachial artery is a large artery that is located in the upper arm. It is easy to access and it is a good representation of the blood pressure in the rest of the body. The other options mentioned, branchial vein, coronary artery, are not correct. The branchial vein is a vein that drains blood from the head and neck. The coronary artery is an artery that supplies blood to the heart. Neither of these vessels is a good place to measure blood pressure. 25th question. The first tap-like sound heard at the time of measuring blood pressure represent options A. Systolic pressure, B. Diastolic pressure, C. Both A and B, D. None of these. The right answer is A. Systolic pressure. The first tap-like sound heard at the time of measuring blood pressure represent systolic pressure. As the pressure in the cuff is released, blood begins to flow through the brachial artery again. The first sound that is heard is a turbulent flow of blood as it enters the artery. This sound is called the first Korokov sound. The first Korokov sound marks the systolic blood pressure. The second sound that is heard is the sound of blood flowing smoothly through the artery. This sound is called the second Korokov sound. The second Korokov sound marks the diastolic blood pressure. The other option mentioned, diastolic pressure, and both A and B are not correct. Diastolic pressure is the sound of blood flowing smoothly through the artery. It is heard after the first Korokov sound. Both systolic pressure and diastolic pressure are not heard at the same time. 26th question. Double circulation is found in options A. Amphibians, B. Mammals, D. Arthropods, D. None of these. The right answer is B. Mammals. Double circulation is found in mammals. Double circulation is a system of blood circulation in which the blood passes through the heart twice, once to the lungs and once to the rest of the body. This type of circulation is more efficient than single circulation, which is found in amphibians and reptiles. In mammals, the heart is divided into 4 chambers, 2 arteria and 2 ventricles. The arteria receive blood from the body and the ventricle pump blood to the lungs and the rest of the body. The first circulation, which is called the pulmonary circulation, carries blood from the right atrium to the right ventricle to the lungs and back to the left atrium. The second circulation, which is called the systemic circulation, carries blood from the left atrium to the left ventricle to the rest of the body and back to the right atrium. The other option mentioned amphibians, orthopods, and none of these are not correct. Amphibians have a single circulation system. Orthopods have an open circulatory system. None of these animals have a double circulation system. Thank you friends for watching the video. I hope you like this video. Please like, share and subscribe. If you want to ask anything, please comment with me. Jai Hind.